Hey guys, Justin Brock here with the Medicare Gurus, and today we have the distinct pleasure of sitting down with somebody who I've had a lot of conversations with recently, and is a really cool dude that we are doing a lot with. Just down to earth guy that's actually making things work by putting in the practical application side of things. I think also. Something that's cool, as we were just talking preemptively before we started recording. This is a guy with 4 kids, with a family, that understands that he's doing this business, not as some single 22-year-old that has all the time in the world. Those guys have nothing to complain about. But he's actually making it work with all kinds of other stuff going on in the world, just by figuring out how to organize his day and where to best spend his time, which is limited. It's the only resource. I say it a lot in videos. It's the only resource we can't get more of. So Eugene Marchenko, with American Insurance Benefits out of Charleston, South Carolina, is with us today. So Eugene, I'm going to turn it over to you real quick, just so you can give an introduction yourself for the people that don't know who you are, and maybe a little more clarification for the people that are aware of who you are.
Yeah. So I've been, my name is Eugene. I've been in the insurance industry now for over 12 years. And when I first started insurance in 2010, so I guess that's almost 12 years, I did not know the difference between deductibles, copays, co-insurance, and so on and so forth. And so I ran my very first appointment by memorizing a script. And I definitely could not grow a beard at that time. I had no kids. I owned 1 car. I did not own a house. So now looking back, it's been a lot. It's interesting because it seems like it's the same thing over and over again, and you look back and everything's changed. Yeah. And it's been an interesting journey, especially because I started with underage health insurance and doing face-to-face appointments, and I did that for 5 years, and I dabbled in the Medicare space, and then decided to go to full-time Medicare, did that over the face-to-face, and then transitioned that into over the phone, and I've been doing over the phone sales now for almost 5 years now.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I didn't know you started in under 65 health, which is a whole nother conversation. That's a crazy market that seems to rapidly be evolving and changing. Opportunity there, but it's not quite as fluid as Medicare. So I can see why you made that shift.
Yeah. I mean, I still dabble in it now. Yeah. I still know the ancillary products, and I do small group plans now too, just from word of mouth. People know. Yeah. You do insurance, like, hey, can you help me? And that's just going back to time. I've been in it for so long. Right. People bring it up. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So and that's a crazy thing about the longer you're in the industry, people that'll come out of the woodwork and find you randomly and be like, hey, I need X. And, when you first start, nobody wants you to help them, because it's like you're a doctor that, is an intern, and you're like, I don't want to be the first surgery this guy does.
Exactly.
But so and then you mentioned something that resonates for me. I like metaphors. You talked about how everything seems like it's a replication of the same thing, but you look back and how much different, how it's evolved. But it evolves so slowly. It's like when you get a puppy and you're around a puppy every day and you don't notice it's growing, and then one day you look back and you're like, how the hell did this is this a full-grown dog? Because I didn't notice it growing every day. And that's kind of how our businesses are.
Yeah.
You think, how did I get from A to Z? But it happened slowly in tiny increments over time. So,
and the most important part is that you're going in every single day and doing what makes the business money, what makes you money, what helps people. Yeah. And it may be like it's the same thing over and over again, but you look back 10 years, 11 years, in my case, almost 12 years, and you're like, holy moly, I'm 4 kids into this.
I like the analogy of growing 1% a day. So that's 365% a year. So, but so you're in Charleston, full telesales, Medicare, utilizing the telemarketers that you're, in part training. and have developed a great system there. So those are the people that don't know, Eugene has traintelemarketers.com, and we actually have referred some of our agents to Eugene who are having some success with it. And then also Johnny in our office has our first telemarketer going, and he's actually loving it. So we're looking at adding some more so we can get probably 2 telemarketers per call center seat for a few guys to try to, between that and Facebook leads, I think we'll be able to fill them up, man. So I'm excited about it as a cog in our machine. I always say this: everything works a little, nothing works a lot. So we love, plugging somebody into something scalable, and the telemarketer thing is scalable. So that's cool. So, and you've been doing it with the telemarketers for how long now? How long have you been using telemarketers?
So twofold. There's 2 answers to that. So going back to when I first started doing insurance in 2010, the company that I was with, I was a captive agent, and we did underage health insurance, and we would get leads. The company would get us leads, but it was mail leads, and we all know how mail leads are. And 10 years ago, it was the same thing. I mean, you were lucky to get 1.5% back, if 1%, and the leads were $40 to $50 a piece by that time they landed to me. Thankfully, I didn't have to pay for them. And so what happened is they give you a stack, you get 5 brand new leads, and you get 50 leads that are 2 to 3 years old, right? Yeah. And so I started doing, and I hated calling those leads, those old leads. And so I talked to my manager at the time, and he's like, I know a girl, her name's Sammy. She's out of Texas. Give her a list and give her a script, and she'll call for you. And so my very first telemarketer was about 1.5 years into the business, calling small businesses and seeing if they needed help with their health insurance. This was around 2008, 2009, post 2008, 2009, whenever the Obamacare started happening, and then they started implementing it. So in 2010, when I was doing insurance, I was actually seeing the market shift significantly. And I don't know if you've been doing insurance then, but we saw a dramatic shift in the underage market. And so there was a lot of questions about health insurance. And so it was really easy to give somebody a list of 5,000 names in a script. But back then, I don't know if she's alive now. She was like in her 60s at the time, and she would dial 1 lead at a time. And she would get me a lead, and I'd pay her. I think it was $15 to $20 a lead is what I paid. And then going, using telemarketers. And then I figured out, then I started doing my own agency, and I was no longer captive. And I'm like, well, shoot, I'm using telemarketers myself, and figured out you can use them in the Philippines. I'm like, well, why don't we just help agents have control over their own marketing too? And so I remember having that mental shift. I'm like, not only can I do it for myself, but I can actually help other agents do it also. And right now, as we sit, I have telemarketers generating me leads that when we get off the phone, I will be calling them. I mean, it's my full-time job is to help people with their insurance.
Yeah. Well, perfect, man. So on the telemarketers, and I know Johnny's working some like that right now. I had never done it. I had purchased some telemarketer leads. It's not the same as having a little more control over being able to being able to listen to the call and actually call the telemarketer that's working for you and say, hey, can you say this instead? Or if they say this, being able to coach them through things that make it easier for you. And then also the way that we're like now, like I was talking to you, we create like a form within our CRM to where the telemarketer is now putting the info in, then the form is going straight into our CRM. So more flexibility rather than buying them, by actually having control of the telemarketer and managing that relationship ongoing.
Well, from when it's generated to when you get it, it's minutes.
Yeah.
It's not days.
Right. I don't have to wait till they fulfill an entire order and then send me a list of leads.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, I personally work those leads. You guys are personally working those leads, which is why I like working with you guys, is because you guys are yeah, you're talking about it, but you're actually walking the walk too. You're not just talking the talk. You don't have leads for sale on your membership site, but you don't work those leads. Your people don't work those leads. You're actually actively working the leads, whether it be the Facebook leads, whether it be telemarketer leads. You and your agency are actually doing the thing that you're teaching agents to do, which is why, over the last couple of weeks, I've been moving my contracts over to you guys, is because I believe in working with good people, good, honest people who do it exactly the way they preach it. There's no fluff. There's no BS, like, hey, do it this way, but we're not going to do it this way, and so it's been a great ride so far. I mean, it's been fun, and you and I have been chatting almost every day.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And I tell you, if I'm going to show somebody how to do something a way that we do it, then, or if I'm going to show somebody something and teach them, if it's good enough for me to teach them, it's good enough for me to try. And so when I started talking to you about the telemarketers, I'm like, I have some people that I think would be good fits. But then at the same time, I'm like, shit, if it's a good fit for them, it's probably a good fit for us too. And that's why I wrote you. It's like, hey, we want to try one. And now I'm thinking, like, we had opened a second office, I had told you that. And I have right now I'm up to Johnny and a few more agents in that office that I'm like thinking telemarketing and one little Facebook strategy we have going between those two. I can kind of scale that call center model that's a little separate from my brick and mortar office, which are different types of lead flows. So and it, a lot of stuff works, and there's definitely, I was just talking to Ron Ray before I got on here with you, and he's doing seminars very successfully. And but it's like there's so many ways to skin a cat, and as you scale and have more and more agents, you have to try more and more things, because there's like we do like local TV, but it's very difficult to scale that because it takes time to create that brand. Whereas the telemarketers is a quick way to get an agent trained, ready to go, and then have them ready so that by the time AEP comes here and we have this massive harvest, they're trained because they've been working real leads all year. So
and then I've sent you my recordings too. I've sent Johnny recordings. I'm like, hey, here's because again, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, is it's about time management, and I'm like, hey, look at the way I handled this call. I disqualified them within 2 minutes, and I didn't waste my time, and I didn't care. I didn't spend $15-$20 a lead. I spent $3 for the lead. I don't care if I only spent 2 minutes with them. I'm gonna move on to the next one. And I think time management you can try all these different things and you find what works for you. But as an agent, I think it's super important to make sure that you manage your time really, really well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, you're talking about that. So when we got with you to get a telemarketer, the amount of time that you actually spent with Johnny saying this is how these leads come in, explaining the process, and then explaining how you work them is huge, because there's all too often if I'm buying a lead somewhere, nobody's telling me how they work them, because the people that are selling them aren't working the leads. You know what I mean? It's not a real, and I've bought leads and had great success, and I've bought leads and had zero success. It seems like it's kind of a crapshoot. Somebody quoted me before, I think Landon and some other guys have, from saying yesterday's best lead vendor is today's worst lead vendor. So we saw that early on, where we would buy like, I won't name their names. There was one lead vendor I remember buying some leads from him, and I was like, man, these are great. I had this great success, and then I keep buying leads from them, and then all of a sudden they're just like terrible, just atrocious. So, but with the telemarketers, these are real time lead flow. You're in control of it. They're not sticking in some garbage in there just to sell you fluff. This is real. You can hear the recording and it's real time. So I love that process. And obviously, with your schedule, your time management is pretty good, because you're able to train some agents in that way, help them get their telemarketers set up and still write business. And then obviously you're, a big involved family man, and making sure you're making a lot of time for family. How do you balance that? Because I have a family, and it's something I struggle with, to work on making sure that I'm making sure my family is way up there, but then still trying to provide them the quality of life I feel like I owe them.
Well, so, that's a really good question. So my thought has always been, so we got 24 hours in a day. We got 6 to 8 hours that we're sleeping. So that's gone, right? When you sleep doesn't really matter. It's the fact that you want to make sure you get your sleep and you take care of yourself and your body and all this stuff. But there's prime time working hours where you make money. There's downtime where you still need to be working and building your business, where it's not interfering with actually doing the grinding, the talking to the clients and all that stuff. But then there's also your family time, to where your kids are the most active when they are, not nap time and not school time. There's that time they're like, hey, I'm playing, I'm having fun. That's when those memories are being made, right? And so nobody remembers nap time, but you will remember your dad reading to you, right? And so the way I've done my schedule is, the first thing I do when I wake up, and a lot of times I'm still in bed because I got my work with me. I'll check my emails, I answer my emails, and we get a lot of emails. You get them too.
Yeah.
And you want to push this out as fast as you can. And of course, I'll answer emails throughout the day, but I'm working on my business, whether somebody has a question about the leads that they're getting, or maybe they want to listen to a recording, or they want me to listen to their recording. I'll do it while I'm still in bed, right? And so that's working time. Then I come down stairs, I'll have my breakfast with my family and all that, and get ready and actually drive to the office. And between 9 and 1, I found that is the best time to call somebody over the age of 65. They're still at home, I can reach them. And so 9 to 1 is when I work my over 65 leads. Between 1 and 4:30, 5 o'clock, maybe even 5:30, it's the slowest time in my business as far as writing business. If I look back over the last 5 years and I actually look at the timestamps of when I wrote business, which I keep track of that, I know between 1 and 5, it's the slowest. And so what I will do is I'll actually spend time with my family when my business has downtime. And happens to be between 1 and 5. So before dinner and after school, because we homeschool, after school, between 1 and 4 and 5, the sun's up, it's hot, we'll go to the pool, we'll hang out. So that's my family time. And if I have an appointment, if let's say I have a T65 appointment, they could only do it at 3 o'clock, I'll do it from my home office. I'll spend 30, 40 minutes talking to the person, answering their questions, and then I go back to my family time. And my kids remember that. We live on the river, so it's like 5-minute walk. My son and I will take the fishing poles, or my daughter will jump off the dock or whatever, and she'll swim. And so I get to build those memories with my family. And then around the dinner time, when my wife is doing the dinner, all that, I'll actually get back on the phone and I'll call my T65 leads, because try to call a T65 at 1 o'clock, they're still working, right? But my T65, my average time, my application submitted is right around 7:30 is when I'll knock out a lot of my T65 applications. And I'll work. So my schedule, my writing business schedule, not my running business, but my writing business schedule, I do 9 to 1, I take a break, and then 4:30 to 5:30 is when I'll start, and I'll push until about 8:30, and I'll have those conversations. My last conversation yesterday was at 7:59, which ended up being a 20-minute conversation. I have an appointment with her and her husband today to write them both. She's 68, he's turning 65. So whenever I call them today, I'm going to go ahead and do the transaction, and then I'm going to get back on the phone and call my leads. And really, it's about maximizing the number of hours you have in a day. And then after that, it's 8 o'clock. I don't go to bed until midnight, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, and I sleep until about 7:30. And so during that time is when and of course I'm answering emails throughout the day, but if there's like a long email that requires a lot of my attention, a lot of my energy, is when I'll actually focus on that email. And that could be with a beer in my hand, that could be while hanging out with my wife. That could be while I'm at a restaurant having dinner. I can go ahead and knock out that email really quick.
Yeah.
And so and this about me, and I'm fishing. I mean, look at this. I'm fishing all the time, and I still have time to actually go and enjoy life and still write 7 to 10 new Metsups a week.
Yeah. Well, that's so, we, it's a refreshing conversation, because a lot of times you hear these people that are, professional mindset speakers. And I look, I was probably, so I talk about my evolution of businesses. Like, I came out of the military and I thought, okay, I'm going to do this because I see my dad have some success in this industry. And I want to, be able to make sure that I provide, a livable income for my family. I got into it. So I actually found the opportunity before I had the mindset shift. My mindset shift came when I began to be rewarded for individual incremental work. Like, you work hard and you submit an application. It was very rewarding. And I was like, oh, I'm going to replicate that as fast as possible. Yeah. Well, so my mindset came later on. And so a lot of times when people speak on mindset and schedule and all that, and that's their big thing, I used to be kind of a naysayer. Like I was kind of like, oh, they need to quit talking about that. They need to talk about the individual incremental work that actually gets you there. But it's twofold. You have to have some practicality, and you have to have the right mindset to know that something's going to work. Well, a lot of times the mindset speakers will say, okay, you got to wake up at 5 a.m. Yeah, and I'm making fun of like some of the guys that I'm friends with, but take a cold shower, you work out, you do all these things. But hearing what you say is, and I've always been a little bit almost scared to say like my schedule, but because I'm afraid so many of those people are like preaching something completely opposite. But mine is actually more like yours, where I do wake up in the morning and answer emails. And a lot of people was like, oh, first 30 minutes you're up, you don't need to touch your phone. And I'm like, bullshit. And I wake up, I get my phone, I answer. Like I can get so much work done before everybody else gets out of the bed in that first 30 minutes. And so people all the time too, what's funny is my schedule's a lot like yours. People all the time say, I don't understand how you get so much done. But a lot of it is just compartmentalizing what time can be utilized for the most effective stuff. It's not, some people say I check my emails at 9 a.m. and I don't touch my email again and I'm like, what? Like I live by my email. So I can't do that, so I like what you're saying about your schedule, because I think it's real and it's practical, and there's nothing wrong with it, and everyone should do what works for them. And there's definitely some science to what you're saying with prospecting, though, for sure.
Well, and there's something to be said about, your mind is the most active when you first wake up. I'm building my website, just for information for Medicare, and somebody can go to whatever, use it as a resource. And it's really hard to sit down and write 1,500 words. However, I found out when I first wake up in the morning, those words come very, very easy. And so, on my website, whenever I work on it and I write the articles or whatever, I'll do it either first thing in the morning, or I'll do it really, really late at night once it's quiet.
Yeah. Well, my book, so I wrote the book, Medicare Breakdown, the Alphabet Soup of Medicare. And when I wrote that, I went to a conference. It was the 8% Nation conference, and there's a guy there, and he just kept harping on you. Everybody needs to write a book. Everybody needs to write a book. And so right after that, my wife always takes us on a little pre-AEP trip somewhere, and she took us to the Opryland Hotel in Nashville, and they have like an indoor water park. And so I knew my family was going to wake up about 7:30 every day. And so while we were there, I woke up at 5:30 which I'm not a 5:30 guy, but I knew I set the idea. I was like, okay, we're going to be here for like 4 days. If I wake up at 5:30 every morning, just like you said, I know I can write this book in that 2 hours before they wake up every day. And that's what I did. So I wrote that entire book in 8 hours, 2-hour slots in the morning before my family woke up. But you're right. Your mind in the morning, I get up, have a little caffeine, a little water, and I'm like churning it out. But if you try to get me to do that at 11 at night, I'm going to fall asleep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I'll go and my kids will go to bed and my wife's already gone. Cause I got a 9-month-old, right? So she's with the baby or whatever. I'll go to the restaurant down the street and sit at the bar or whatever, have a beer. And sometimes I'll knock it out. I started in the morning. So what I do is in the morning, whenever, so my website, 2-Minute Medicare, what I do in the morning is I start the bullet points. I get my ideas down first.
Yeah.
And then I can fill them in because the idea is already there. It's just a matter of putting the actual language. And so a lot of times in the evenings, I'll fill in the language because I already have the meat and potatoes down. And they'll actually, 2 or 3 paragraphs per idea. And next thing you know, you have whatever, words you need. Yeah. But the whole point of this is time management. And I did a video with Dave Dufer last week, and it was the same thing with the conversation that I had. It's the way that I actually work the leads and the system. So whenever I get a batch of leads, I don't sit there and hand dial them one by one, because to sit there and listen to the dial tone to get a voicemail, which I don't leave voicemails, but to get to the voicemail, that's 33 seconds. So really that's only 2 calls in a minute. Yeah. The fact that I use my dialer to call through my leads, I'm able to get through 4-6 calls in 1 minute and actually have somebody that I'm talking to. And there's really no downtime to working the leads, because I figured out how to continually have conversations to save people money or to help them with their enrollment into Medicare.
Yeah. And so I've heard you say things before too, like, you disqualify quickly and don't waste your time with them. And to put that into context, and it may have been you that actually originally said this, but some people are like, oh, they'll spend a whole lot of time with that person past the point of knowing that it's a dead lead. Yeah. And I think you said every minute that I'm wasting on somebody I can't help is a minute I could be spending with somebody that I can help.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing is you cut out the BS, you figure out whether or not there's savings, and you figure out whether or not they're healthy enough to qualify, or if they're retiring, to make sure, like if they're not getting TRICARE, or if they're not continuing to work, if they say I'm going to continue to work, I'm not enrolling to Medicare for 3 years, I'm going to find that out within probably before I even schedule the appointment for the call, just to see if it's even worth having a follow-up call with this person. Yeah. And so I believe in lots of good quality leads that are inexpensive, and then try to go through them as fast as you can and find the people that you can help and that will listen to you. If somebody says, hey, you know what, I already got it taken care of. I'm like, oh, who are you working with? Oh, I'm working with Justin Bruck. I'm like, oh, okay, sounds good. It sounds like you got everything taken care of. I move on to the next person. I don't try to pry the business. Well, did he tell you about Plan N? No. Yeah. I'm going to go on to the next person.
And your marketing system, by allowing you to have controllable, affordable lead flow, you don't have to waste your time trying to overly sell. And that's there's a whole conversation in sales versus marketing. Yeah. And I think what you're trying to do is finding the intersection between sales and marketing, where you have the quickest return on investment. You spend the most of your time helping people. Yeah. And the least of your time wasting your time.
Yes, so, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I know what works for me. It may not work for everybody. I'm a guy who's been married for 13 years almost, and I have 4 kids, and time is very, very, very important to me. Yeah. I want to make sure that my kids remember who I am, because and I'm getting a little personal now, but like my biggest fear, like I don't fear dying. I fear that my kids will not know who I was if I was to pass away prematurely, right? Mm-hmm. And so with my 9-month-old, if I was to be gone tomorrow, he won't know who I was. He won't know who Eugene Marchenko or Yevgeny Marchenko, which is my real name. He won't know who his dad was. And so my job is to leave a legacy, to leave something behind, which is why I like doing these kinds of conversations, but also really spending good quality, important, like meat and potatoes time with the family, with the clients, and cut out all the BS, cut out all the spending 3 hours on the phone and only having 2 conversations, or I don't know, you can work on your business until you're blue in the face, but if you don't sell any policies, you're going to starve.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree, man. You prioritize, you figure out what your, goal is, and then you do what you have to do to provide for your family and spend as much time with as possible. It's been a thing that I've been, working on. Everybody says you're the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time around. And what I ended up doing was pushing into spending my time with some of the 5 probably hardest working people. And it made me super hardworking, and it kind of aspired me to do greater. But what I didn't do was make those 5 people balanced. And so sometimes now I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I need a couple of the really hardworking, like, aspirational people. But maybe I need some people that are just being really good fathers that I'm, aspiring to be like. Or maybe I need people to spend around that are very charitable and involved in some sort of organization that's admirable, things like that. So I started thinking, now that we have this trajectory, maybe being the hardest working person and putting the most out there isn't the only thing that matters. So, just so it's inspirational to know that you design your business around, a methodology that allows you to, make a great income for your family, but also spend time with them and make that known. Somebody said at a wedding one time I was at, the bride said something about how her dad took her to school every morning. And so their relationship was almost built on the commute to school. And so one thing that I try to do is I always take my kids to school every morning. So even though my wife could do it, I try to do it. And those it seems like small things, but that's 30 minutes of me in the car with my kids. And so anytime I can find somewhere in the schedule to spend that to them. And now I'm trying to do more and more. And I think everybody wants to, this is a great industry to be in, to be able to work hard, really hard for a few years. And then almost, kind of slope off and then just continue to add on to your book. But keep that residual income going. There's not a lot of industries you could do it in.
And right now, like if I really wanted to, I can go and I can hire people, I can scale it, I can get more telemarketers, I can teach them the process, I can give them the scripts, I can go manage them, and I can have 10, 15 seats filled in the next year if I really wanted to. But I'm not there. I don't want that right now. Now in my 40s, when my kids are out or whatever, you watch out, but right now I'm completely happy with writing. If I write 4 policies in a week and I had a bad week, I don't care. I spent the last 2 months moving and remodeling a house, and I averaged probably 3 to 4 hours of actual work a day, which isn't a lot at all. But I was still able to write at least 1 policy a day doing that. So now that things have slowed down a little bit, I'm going to go back to doing the whole full-time thing. But I don't care. And that's what I told you. I'm like, you asked me the question before. It's like, well, what about training and recruiting agents and all that stuff? I'm like, I don't want to do that right now. I don't mind training an agent. I don't mind sitting one-on-one and doing a consulting with somebody or whatever, because I can control that time. I can get it done super early, super late, somewhere in between my schedule if the family's busy or whatever, or if I have appointments. But I can control that versus having lots of agents always asking me questions. I'm not there right now.
And by the same accord, you could probably be selective with the agents that you spend your time on. I mean, you could probably quickly say in a conversation, or like, okay, this is an agent that is probably going to be a lot more trouble than it's worth. We're not going to be a good fit. And you could just tell them. Like, hey, look, I'd love to work with you. There's probably a spot for you out there, but I don't think this is going to be a fit. I don't want to waste your time.
I'm okay with saying no. It's okay to say no.
You have to be stingy with your time. I mean, I was Jim Carrey yes man for a long time. And I'm actually trying to come out of that now and be stingier with my time. And I think being a yes man, it's good for some things, but it causes as many problems as it alleviate, as it creates opportunities. So I've been on the reverse side of that and learning. So, but man, I appreciate you, working with us on stuff and coming on board with us and
you guys have been great. Yeah.
I know it's
been
going to be a
fun.
really fruitful relationship too, because I run into these agents all the time, like a couple that I've sent you recently. And I think of more all the time that you'll be a great fit for. And I think it just interweaves well. So super excited that you did this interview with me. I know we'll probably be back on and talking about some other stuff, because my interview format is more like, let's just get engaged in a conversation that could benefit other people. Yeah. And, if anybody is looking to talk to you about, traintelemarketers.com or anything that you're doing other than going straight to traintelemarketers.com, is there another way that you would want them to reach out to you?
Yeah. So Eugene, so EUGENE at traintelemarketers.com or support@traintelemarketers.com. I see the emails. My phone actually texts me whenever I have an email strictly from that. So I'll respond right away. Yeah. And then the same thing, I've had a couple agents ask me through the program, like, well, where do you have your contracts? I'm like, well, let me show you to a guy who actually does that and does it well. So so traintelemarketers.com has a video on there on how to get started, or if you have any questions about how the program works. So we do Medicare over 65, under 65, turning 65, if you will. And then we do life insurance, final expense. So it's not just Medicare related. We have agents who ask us about final expense leads. The thing is, I don't sell leads. That's not my business. I don't go in there and I try to sell you leads. That's not my purpose here. I really want you to learn how to market, and I want you to be able to generate your own leads. Train telemarketers, you get a telemarketer or 2 or 3 or however many you get, and you learn how to generate your own leads.
Yeah. Perfect, man. Well, awesome. Anybody that is looking to scale in a different way and utilize a scalable lead flow system that does work, we are using it. Head over to traintelemarketers.com or email Eugene at support@traintelemarketers.com.
Or Eugene at traintelemarketers.com.
Or Eugene at traintelemarketers.com.
Awesome.
All right, buddy, man. Thank you so much. Thank you all for watching, and we'll have another video out for you soon.